Bronx.
Remy Ma verse. Lean back.
I'm conceited. I got a reason. Hey.
I love that I'm interviewing people from the Bronx right now.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
three of
That's
y'all.
great. That's
I love
wild.
that you're interviewing people from the Bronx.
I know,
Yes.
right?
That was
We're about to talk our shit.
That was
know.
unplanned.
No,
Do you know, wait,
I
the Bronx is literally the last borough to get gentrified right now.
Absolutely.
And it's actually really sad
It's
right
not
now.
going. It's not going.
Wait, Queens has gotten gentrified? I feel like Queens is ungentrifiable.
Yeah, it's been like already a gentrified.
I don't spend so much time in Queens, so I don't know. I never
love
go there.
Queens.
But I feel like Queens is such a melting pot.
No, the Bronx is already getting gentrified.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen in the ways that it's happening in Brooklyn. Though. I don't think it's possible. I think
the Bronx-
Fordham Road for sure because it's.
But even like, you know where
In the school.
Yeah, exactly.
3rd Avenue Bridge?
Yeah.
That area is
Oh, yeah. No,
yeah,
my God.
it's
I live
so
right by that bridge.
Yeah.
It's so close. It's so close to the city. But like we talk about. I mean, Castle. No one's coming to Castle.
Ain't nobody going to Castle Hill.
No, but they're building a metro. Let's keep it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. I love it. Naley's like,
I'm like, oh.
no, y'all look good. Thank
Wait,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Bronx.
Big Bronx.
In the house.
Bronx
Big
in the
Bronx
house.
energy.
Word.
Welcome to Hella Latina, where I hand the mic back to our people, the first gens, the immigrants, the kids of immigrants, those who exist in between two different worlds, because if we don't tell our story, who will? Thank you all for being here. Honestly, the reason I wanted all of y'all together, I had no idea that, first of all, you were all from the Bronx and that you all know each other. But I think that when I think about liberation, I think about all three of y'all. And Naley, obviously, you talk so much about geopolitics and you, for me, make the through line of like all of our collective liberation. And you talk your shit.
Word.
You talk about it in a real way that I'm like, people need to hear this. I be sharing your stories, reposting. Like, you just talk about things in a way that no one else is talking about.
Oh, that's like the best compliment.
Yeah.
No, truly. And Jazz, you're funny. Like, you make everything that's like hard to grasp sometimes and you make it funny and relatable. And that's your whole platform is how do we break cycles? And also it doesn't have to be like dark. It can be like little things. Like, don't put pots in the oven. Yeah. Even though I'm gonna still do that though. That's a cycle I won't break.
It could be like it's true.
Compost.
That's a cycle I won't break. But Joél, and obviously you do it from like a human like soul level. You're like, it's self-liberation. Like, how do we like liberate ourselves from these systems on a soul level? So I want to talk to all of y'all. For those who don't know you, that are listening to you for the first time, who are you? What do you do? And how do you identify? And I'll start with you.
I was like, not me first. Hi, my name is Naley, and I am the founder of Naley by Nature. And I started out working on a docuseries, which I'm hoping to continue this year. And then I started getting into content creation, writing, and I mostly talk about geopolitical issues, political issues, and I try to also connect it to spirituality. I really engage with your work too, you know, like understanding something from the soul level. And I think there's a bridge that can be built between social and political issues and like spirituality. And spirituality doesn't have to be religious, but I think that there is, I think something energetically and like on a soul level that there are human beings that are being harmed all around the world. And I try to like engage with it from a place of empathy. And so that's kind of like my work right there.
And it shows. It's like so evident.
Yeah.
It's so evident.
Thank you.
Yes, and I love watching your stuff. You always hit the nail on the head.
Oh,
Like, no,
always.
you failed. Like, I don't think I've seen one where you've like missed the mark. I'm always like, bullseye yet again.
thank you.
Yes.
Truly.
How you guys doing? My name is Jasmine, and I am a content creator, an actress, a comedian, a writer. And I make content about, you know, being Puerto Rican, living in New York City, and being a cycle breaker as the first of my family to go to college and then enter corporate America and then leave it to do my creative passions. And I also make like real life stressors relatable, and I make it funny so that we could all get through it a little bit easier. And I started doing content during the pandemic because I was losing my mind like everybody else. And I was like, if I don't laugh about this, I'm gonna be crying all day. And yeah, so I think it's really important to connect with people on a ground that like everyone can just relate to. And I'm like always talking my I curse on here, right?
Yeah.
I'm always talking my shit on stories, and I think it's important to look at like what is the role that you play in everything that's happening in the world, because whether or not like we want to acknowledge it or admit it, like we all play a role in either, furthering the system or breaking the system or imagining a new system, whatever it is. We all play a role in the system that we are a part of. And so that's a lot of conversations I have like outside of social media when it's more like, back and forth. But yeah.
Yeah, word. Joél Leon. And I'm really excited to be sharing space with y'all.
Yeah,
Yes.
Girl dad, Bronx born, writer, poet, rapper, storyteller, person, creative director. And kind of piggybacking off of both of y'all, I think part of why I'm also excited about this conversation is like kind of bearing witness to the intersections of the work. And so like you mentioned, Odalys, like my work is very much centered and rooted in heart and love. And the reminder that I think for me I go back to is if we're not working through the healing aspects of removing the oppressor or the cop in our hearts and our minds and our spirits, we just wind up replacing like oppressors with more oppressors. And so the work for me has always been, how do we infuse the liberation practice into all things? And so for me, my liberation practice sees and also seeds itself through my art practice of writing, of performing, and using art really as a catalyst to engage and also create different kinds of conversations. Because like we were talking off camera, we've been talking a lot about dismantling systems, but I'm really more so invested in what are we imagining after, which is I think we're at the precipice of that moment. And so I think that's part of the work that I'm trying to do, but I think the folks here collectively are trying to do in very different ways.
Yeah, I love that, using art as a catalyst. I use it as catharsis, and then you have the catalyst.
Yeah,
I think you use it to inspire thoughts and actual like deeper perspective and critical thinking.
Yeah.
So I love how we all use art.
Yeah, because all those stages are important, and I feel like it's easy to, I don't know, try to single out one as more imperative or more pertinent than the other, when it's like they all kind of work collectively when we're doing it right.
And everything's art. Everything.
Yeah.
We're all artists and creatives.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the work that capitalism has done, is to like take us away from that. Take us away from the core of like, we're storytellers, we're creatives, but we don't got time. We're busy. We're tired. We're working. We got to find a job. We got to like pay bills.
Yeah.
And it's tough, but you all still do it. And that's like the resistance, right? You're still doing it no matter what.
Too.
We all doing it. This is my art form. Like our ancestors did this. We sat around and we just talked about stories.
Right.
But here's the thing, like this is why I wanted all of us here too, is because we're so siloed and we don't always share space together.
Yeah.
And I had this moment because I was planning a live podcast in LA, and they're like, well, how do we like market to the Latinos? And I was like, well, it's not just Latinos. Like, yes, my podcast is hella Latina because that's how I started it. Like 2020 was me, like, how do we reclaim our identity? But also, how do we reclaim our liberation collectively? Because at the same time, like, girl, like I can go down the street and I can look like something else. Like there's, we were talking about this, like the cop test, now they're not going to ask you like, where are you from?
Yeah.
You know, like they're going to look at us like, oh, they're all from the Bronx, or they're all from like Southeast, they're all from the hood. You know what I mean? Like our liberation is really tied. And I didn't know that. And one of the questions I have for you, and I always start the podcast with, how do you identify and why? And the reason being, at the time in 2020, I started with the idea of, I want people to know that there's more Latinidad than just like the cultures that you see. And we're so much more in depth, right? There's so much to us. But I want to ask you all, how do you identify, and how did you realize your identity was tied to a system? And I ask that because I always rep being Latina. I always rep being Honduran. But I never asked the question, like, why did we come here? For opportunity? Like, why did we actually, like, how did we get here? And then going down like the whole rabbit hole of like, oh, the banana fruit company was in Honduras, ravished our lands, and then left us in poverty. And it didn't do that to just us. It did that to Guatemala, and did that to Dominican Republic. Is doing it now. Like it's doing it to so many countries, and so many of us are victims of that immigration. And so I ask you, like, how do you identify, and how did you realize like your identity was tied to something, a system?
Yeah, that's a really great question.
Take it away, Joél. Let's go back and forth.
Yeah,
I saw him simmering. He's like,
trying to move away. It's funny. I was having tea with a homie of mine today, actually, Laura Chung, and we literally were talking about identity. And I don't know if y'all can relate to this, but when people ask me where I'm from, say I'm New York. Like I don't call out definitely don't say American. But I don't even say, like, my mom is West Indian. My father is country as fuck. Like, he was born in Pensacola, Florida. So, like, there's that element to it. I mean, I identify as a black man first and foremost, you know. Like, I think I have my feet in a number of different worlds because I also identify as a father. I also identify as a
and that's all part of it.
like,
that's
these are
all
all these identities that I like, that they sit with me. And so part of my work has been owning that. What's the second half of that question?
How's it tied to the system?
How did you realize it? When did you realize your identity was tied to the system?
I mean, I think, I don't know if there was ever an awakening for me in that, because being black in America and being a black man in America, which is very different than, like, let's say, being a queer black woman or a queer fat black woman or even a queer black man in America, being a straight black man in America. It was very easy for me to see my identity tied to the system, because it's constantly being surveilled in that way. So I guess the question for me then becomes, when has it not? It's always kind of been tied to some kind of political infrastructure. And so my work has been finding my identity outside of that, which is where my art practice, I think, has come in.
Yeah. What did you find doing the work outside of that?
Freedom, the ability to be malleable, to be fluid, the ability to find myself in different parts of myself through art. I mean, theater played a large part in that. Rapping played a large part in that. Like, we think about the cipher and what that actually means and what that identifies as, like, the circle that gets built in a rap cipher. And so I think a lot of that was part of it for me. But it was a lot of finding myself and regrounding myself and also relearning myself through my art practice. Like, Joél as the performer now is different than Joél coming out of college at 21 in the spoken word scene, still trying to find himself. I'm very assured of who I am now, but that happened because of the art.
That's a big part of my work, is tell your story before they do. Because they will tell all the stories about you. And if we don't, that's why y'all are all writers. Like, if we don't write our story, then they'll do it for us.
Word.
And it's never right.
Yeah.
Never.
Never.
And it never encapsulates us fully. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah. I love that answer. And I just love how you said, she asked you, what'd you find? You said freedom. We were talking about freedom today earlier, and how everyone defines freedom differently.
Absolutely.
And so I just love how, like, you just defined it, even like the picture you painted of, like, a cipher, a bunch of people in a circle rapping about what's on their mind.
Literally.
Is very similar to a powwow. A bunch of tribal members together talking, speaking with one another, sharing a story.
Yeah.
And I can see how that is free. So
Thank you, Jess.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I identify as Puerto Rican from the Bronx. Whenever anyone's like, who are you? I'm Puerto Rican from the Bronx. I say it so often. People are like, oh yeah, you live in the Bronx. I actually live in Harlem now. But I'm going to rep the BX to the very end. Like, literally, it raised me. Yeah. So I identify as Puerto Ricans from the Bronx. I think for me, like, I realized at least my Puerto Rican identity was political when I went to PR and saw that, like, Puerto Ricans from the island are, like, very different than Puerto Ricans from New York. And I was like, oh, so that's why we have the term New Yorican. And why the hell are we over here anyway? Like, why do we end up over here? What am I doing here? Like, why am I not in Puerto Rico? And, in 2020 with, like we were saying earlier, I was losing my mind. I decided to start really digging into Puerto Rican history, and then, listening to audiobooks. And the first book was The War Against All Puerto Ricans. Love that book. I think it's a great intro book. Yeah. If you want to be radicalized as a Puerto Rican of the diaspora to reclaim your identity, you need to read or listen to that audiobook. Yeah. And then, I feel like that moment, I was just like, I grew up learning American history in school, and, it's not like my mom sat me down and I was like, hey, that's not your history. Right. I realized at some point, all this history I'm learning in school actually ain't got shit to do with me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? None of it has anything to do with me until 1898. When the U.S. and Spain started having their beef, and in 1901 when they acquired, when the U.S. basically acquired Puerto Rico and now has it as a colony, stole Puerto Rico. So literally, that's when it starts having something to do with me. But prior to that, I should probably go be learning the history about Spain and Puerto Rico before learning U.S. history, when I really want to think about learning about my history. So I feel like my Puerto Rican identity, I realized it was political when I just started having that curiosity to learn more about it and be like, why am I here? And then I started asking questions like, when did my dad come here? Like, what wave of Puerto Ricans was he a part of?
Yeah.
Oh, he came here in the 50s. Okay, so his mom probably came to be a factory worker. That's when all the factory workers came over. And, how did my mom's family get here? And, my mom grew up in foster care. And so I actually found some of my blood relatives that I've never met through 23andMe.
Oh, wow.
So I got some questions and I had some questions and I got some answers. And I'm like, okay, so, they came over here like in the 60s, like late 50s, because my mom was born here, but my dad was born in PR. So I just started like asking questions. And I think that's when I really started learning like, wow, this Puerto Rican identity is like very political. And then that's it. It's been radicalized me. And I'm like, free PR from now until forever.
Free
Forever.
PR until it's backwards.
Yeah.
Until it's backward.
Yeah.
I really love like what you're talking about when it comes to diaspora. I feel like that's such a common feeling amongst diaspora in like, what is our identity?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I feel like for me, that is what I struggled with was like, you're not going to be American enough. And then when you go back home, you're not Puerto Rican or Bangladeshi enough. So it's like, you're kind of like in this like,
In between.
Yeah.
like, and for me growing up, identity was such a hard thing, especially even growing up in the Bronx, because it was like, when I grew up in the Bronx, it was majority like Black and Latino. And so you were like the 1% that was like, South Asian. And it was like, what are you doing here? And then like 9/11 happened. And then it was like, oh my God, like no one knew what Islam was prior to that.
That, that's straight up true. Nobody had a question about Islam.
Nobody thought about Islam.
Yeah.
And then 9/11 happened. It was like, are you Muslim? Like, I just remember going to school and everyone's like, are you Muslim? Are you Muslim? And it's like that day, like literally changed everything. I think that would, for me, is like when I realized my identity was attached, was connected to the system, right? And it was like, I was so young and like having to deal with that, navigate that on my own. And then my parents not being able to navigate that with me. But I think like, for me, like when people ask me like, how do I identify? Like, to be honest, like my spiritual journey has been to not attach myself to an identity, right? And I feel like that has actually been my liberation. And if you notice, I don't really talk about my identity like that.
Yeah.
Because I also know how that it almost chains you, right? And it's like, this is my identity. And it's like, actually, no one really wanted me before, like no one was even claiming me. And now that I have a platform, it's like, what do you identify? And it's like, now we're going to hold you to this standard, right? And it's like, no, like, I feel like my experience was that, even when growing up in, Black and Latino neighborhoods, even though I wasn't one of them, it was always like, okay, you can sit here with us, And then when I went to college and I in the workforce and it was majority white people, it was like, you're not one of us, but you could sit with us, And so it was like, you're kind of like this chameleon and you kind of just learn that like, actually, this is my superpower. I can just like be, and I think even in my work, when I travel to Palestine or Lebanon or, Cuba, whatever, I feel like I could just fit in. And there is this welcomingness that comes with that. And I feel like that's what I take pride in. And like, even just being from New York, it's like, that to me is part of my identity. That's the first thing I say. I'm like, I'm from New York, because it's like, everyone in the world knows New York. And New York is a country to me. Like,
right.
New York is
different. It's different.
It's like, we are not the rest of America. Like, it is truly a melting pot of people. You will never, I think Jackson Heights is like the most diverse neighborhood in the world.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, we have that. Like, you can find the best food from everywhere in the world in New York City. You can find any neighborhood in New York City. And that to me is like, you can have a whole multicultural experience just living here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's like so much pride I have in that. There's only so many other things that I can criticize New York about. But I'm like, to me, like my identity, if I had to say it would be more New York than anything else. But when I realized like it was attached to the system is definitely 9/11. And then that radicalizing me at a young age. And like, I remember in high school, this was during the Iraq War. And I remember my teacher was like, very much like supporting the war. And I was like, do you think that this is the best thing for people in Iraq? And she was like, do you know that Saddam Hussein took all the women's Olympics team and lined them up and shoot them one by one because they lost? And I was like, at the time you don't have Google, right? Like you don't have your phone and like, I couldn't even, and I was just like, what are you talking about, right? But those experiences growing up and being like, there's so much more to this story.
Yeah.
And even a teacher could be wrong. And I remember thinking that at a young age and be like, no, my teacher is wrong. And I used to sit there and I would argue, even if I didn't have all the facts. I was like, I'm going to find the facts. And like, those are the things that radicalized me. And then it did push me to like understand identity, but not to attach myself. You know, I think it was like a long time till I was like, what is my identity? And then finally being like, it's okay that I don't have one, you know? And actually this is my liberation, is like, you know what I mean? Like, we're just a soul having a human experience.
Yeah.
Like, what if we were born, like, what if I was born Puerto Rican, right? Or
Stop something over here.
right? Or if I was born like anywhere in the world, and it's like, you would have even that experience. And it's like, when I think about it like that, it humbles me. Even when I think about Israelis, like, if I was to be born Israeli, I would think just like them. And when I think like this, it really helps me to understand, like, you really have to see yourself as a soul having a human experience.
100%.
So that you can see outside of that.
Yes.
You know? Because if I was born to a family, like, all of us have ignorant members in our family. You know?
Every single one of us.
And it's like, you can either be a product of that, or you can take yourself out of that and be like, you guys are messy. Like, I need to remove myself and see myself as an individual versus like part of this.
Right.
All right, y'all, we're going to take a quick break because support your girl if you want to keep listening to these conversations. I have shirts, Hella Latina, Hella Brown hats, Hella Brown anything that you want, and also have Hella Brown, Hella Worthy candles. 50% of the proceeds go to Chirla, an immigration rights organization. You know what? I relate to your work so much because I've always been in the in-between. I think all of us are really like straddling that in-between. And I always felt like, damn, in either space, like, I just don't fit in. I'm more of a bridge. And like, I'm the interconnectedness of these generations, multi-generational households. And like, you know, even that like immigrant, I'm not an immigrant, but I'm a kid of an immigrant. But I'm also like from California, but I can go anywhere in the world and I can fit in because I know what it's like to not fit in. You know what I mean? Like, you become that person because you have always been not enough for all these spaces. But one thing I love about your work that I was like, finally someone's doing it, is a spirituality piece. Because there's always like this deep shame of like being spiritual, being religious, because it's tied again to like the patriarchy, or, oh my God, the patriarchy like this. And like, there's always just so much hate around it. But I'm like, the one place I do belong is like in God's presence. Do you know what I mean? And you talking about that, I was like, girl, yes, you could be an activist and be like super spiritual.
I feel like in these liberation spaces, it's like this thing of like, we hate God or we hate religion. And it's like, no, you hate it because of the way you learned about it, you know? And it's like, to me, religion is so poetic. It's poetry. Even when I think about like these religious texts, it's like, it wasn't meant to be taken so literally, you know?
Oh my God. People are reading religious texts at like a 3rd grade level.
Yeah.
No, truly.
Oh my God. There was this TikTok creator that made a video about this. I think her name is Afro Indie Equity or something like that. And she was talking about how, like, guys, the story of Adam and Eve was like written at like a 12th grade level. Everyone here is reading at like a 3rd grade level. So maybe the serpent of, you know, telling them what to do, like, think about it. What is the apple? They ate the apple and then they suddenly knew they were naked. Maybe the apple is just knowledge. It's more about the symbolism of what these things are, not so much that there was a literal serpent that was like, eat the apple, I'm gonna tempt you. Maybe no. Like think a little bit higher level and think about what is everything here representing
on a spiritual level.
On a spiritual level.
Yeah. Because I realize when I bring logic into spirituality, it gets lost because I'm thinking about, you know, this logic. I'm thinking about the logic that we were taught.
Right.
It's still part of a system.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
You know, sometimes I even think about like the bastardization of ayahuasca. And it really bothers me because I have done ayahuasca. I've done a lot of different plant medicines, and they're really beautiful experiences. Although the way that I did it is questionable. But I want to know. I do think about like how it's become this like very capitalistic thing, and now like people laugh at it, and it's like it's a joke, and it's like it's not a joke. It's like a real thing.
No, it is literally medicinal.
It's medicinal.
I'm like convinced like I'm not like on any religion or like into really religion or I'm not into organized religion. I'm very much into spirituality. Yeah. And so like when I think of like plant medicines, to me that feels like so spiritual. Because I'm like, no, this is like a magic thing. This is a portal into the beyond.
You get to see
and like I'm just like people don't know if they have not tried anything.
Yes.
And I'm like, you haven't tried anything either because of religion or because of the law or because of whatever you're brainwashed with to thinking that this plant that grew from the ground is evil or whatever you think it is. Just give it a little try and then think for yourself.
Yeah. But I also think like people are, I don't know, it's like these medicines help you see beyond, you know, like it's like you think in this like very 3D level and then like it takes you all the way. But then it's become this thing where I see people taking it over and over and over and over.
And
you
can't do it like that.
You can't do it. It's because we live in a system of like mass consumption.
Yes.
And you need addiction.
Yes. And overindulgence. Like I always tell people like I very much am an advocate for shrooms. I'm very much like, do it if you need a message from the universe. If you don't need a message from the universe, you're gonna have a really bad trip.
time. Yeah,
it's not gonna be good, or maybe you'll get like a few giggles. But if you really want like a message, then do it with intention
and do it in nature. Yeah. You know, but I think like people are doing it.
We were talking about it in nature once, and I actually had a terrible time. If you've never,
she's like, I'm a city girl. I can't.
I know. What? I'm a city girl too. What did you mean? What is the bad experience you had?
I needed to do it in my room. I did it in my room, and I had a great time.
What happened when you were in nature?
You know what? The trees were moving a little. It was too much visual stimulation.
Was it a lot of people?
No, it was just me and one person, my partner at the time, and we did it in nature. And like the trees were just moving a little too crazy. And then we had we were gonna grill, and then I'm like, wait, we can't grill because we're tripping.
Oh yeah.
So we are gonna burn this shit down. So then we had to like eat cold cuts and bread, and it was just a terrible experience. Like I would say, don't do it in nature because the trees were moving too crazy.
No. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be your spiritual guide. Okay. And nature's the best because you know what, you really feel so connected to nature, and you realize like the trees are always watching us. It's actually like connecting beyond that because that's the whole thing of ayahuasca. It's like realizing like. Everything is our answer.
We are scared, like a little scared, because I kept getting scared, and then I would look at my dog. My dog was my reality check. So I'm like, he don't hear nothing. I'm not really here.
I mean, that's the thing. To that point, to your point of the intention. I mean, and you mentioned it, like the ancestral energy that carries the thing, but you get the intention behind why and the what is important. And if you go into anything, I mean, in generally, like with fear. You might get that fear
come up. Yeah.
Maybe that was it. You
got to unpack it.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think even to the point, I think y'all talking about something really important because when I think about the overconsumption of it all, it's because people, and like when we think about this religion and religion as a construct, it's because people are trying to find themselves. And especially in this moment and time that we're in. And so when you see the overconsumption of certain things or even certain conversations, right, it's people feel lost.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think about in Buddhism, the practice of...
I love Buddhism.
Right. And so like when we think about pain is a constant, suffering is optional, right? And so the suffering comes from what we cling to, right? And so much of us are clinging to an identity, right? To a thing. And you know, part of the practice is how do we not detach, but like non-attachment as a practice in Buddhism, right? So the idea, like, as opposed to having a closed fist to a thing, I don't have to clench so tightly to something, whether that be an identity, an ideology, right?
Yes.
Because then again, I want to go back, like the malleability, the fluidity required to be able to show up, to be a chameleon in that experience, like, is important. But in order to do that, you have to practice some level of non-attachment to things, you know?
And that is part of the collective liberation. Absolutely. That's part of the self, like, how do we decolonize our own minds and spirits and bodies? And that is a whole practice. And actually, how did you guys start doing that? Like, when was the moment you're like, oh my God, these systems are living within me? Like, I gotta like liberate myself before I start talking about liberation for all.
I mean, it's clear as day to me because I remember I was living in Georgia at the time with my then partner. And before we had moved to Georgia, I picked up this book called Spirit of a Man by Ayanna Van Zandt. And it's, Ayanna is, get, what is her famous GIF where it's like, not on my watch. That's Ayanna. But the book was written in like the early 90s. And so the language is a little bit archaic, but it was specifically written for Black men. And I remember I picked up the book maybe a few months prior to moving. And I was just really depressed. I was in my early 20s, trying to go close to my late 20s at that point, probably like 27, trying to figure myself out. And I remember just reading the book, and it was the first time I felt like someone was communicating to me in a way that felt tender and soft, but instructional. Like my mom was incredibly loving, and I tell people my mom gave me tools, but I didn't know how to use the tools, right? Like it was like, you lead a person to the water and show them how to fish, but I had the fishing pole, but I didn't know what to do with it. And like, how do you cook the fish? How do you cut it? Like there was a whole pattern of a thing that was missing for me. But reading the book was like instructional, and it was her talking to Black men specifically. And that book then led me to Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul. That led me to Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now and a New Earth. And then it also led me to Buddhism. And so there was just a lot of mindfulness in that practice that was kind of guiding me toward, okay, there's a, Naley was talking about like what I hear and what you were sharing is like the non-identifying self. Right? Like there's a double consciousness that exists in us. Like me, Joél, in my body right now is very aware that I'm also sitting down here with y'all, and there's also other layers of that experience happening. And so for me, it then became, okay, there's a version of self that's showing up in this moment that also needs to be hyper aware and present, but not hyper and aware in the sense of growing up as a Black man where there's that fear, right? Which is a very rational fear, right? Of what can happen around the corner, but a hyper awareness that allows me to be intentional about how I'm showing up in the environments I actually get to be invited into, right? And so for me, it just became a lot of that unpacking, and it was hard, it was scary, it was also even more depressing. And then I had my first daughter, and then it was like, oh, okay, there's some shit that I really need to unlearn. And so what I had told myself when Lila was born, it was like two things. A, how can I pour as much love into this human being as possible? And then also two, how do I deal with all the demons I have so that I don't become a vessel of those to her and for her? A lot of that work came through the writing, a lot of that work. And then so just being curious. I think, Jasmine, you didn't even mention it. Like the curiosity, and I say like my favorite people are the most curious people. And so
you got to be.
Curiosity is like really what it is.
Just asking myself a lot more questions, like just why? Because like really quickly, like you think about kids, and it's like the joke of why? But it's the sky is blue. Why is the sky blue? And I had to have those answers for Lila. And in order to answer those questions, I had to inform myself of that. And so it just forced me to also start asking more questions of myself and other people. Like, why is this a table? Or why is the sky blue? And being able to unpack those things. And the further I got down into like the foundational elements of those answers, it also allowed, I think, a bit more freedom for myself in that process.
I love that. We don't ask why enough. We're not curious enough.
And kids are the best at reminding you of like what you're missing like, in your life.
Always.
Truly. The most honest.
They're honest. They have questions,
Yeah.
and it's just like they're just so hungry to learn things.
Yeah, and they're mean,
people
too.
lose that along.
And they're mean.
Yeah.
No, they could be telling you like, what's that on your face? I'm like,
oh my God, I babysat a kid once. I was like, you have angry eyebrows. I was like,
wow, that's very
people want this arch.
They're asking for it.
They do. They do. But when did, I want to ask Naley, because your work is so, you have like this bird's eye view of everything that's happening in the world, in my opinion. I'm sure that's a lot, to like also know. But I think for me, you have like this bird's eye view of everything that's happening in the world. And like, you're showing us like, this is connected to this, and this is why it matters to you. And, you do it so beautifully. And also like, you hold people accountable. Like, I don't know if you know, but I be watching your videos and I'm like, okay, I need to be held accountable to know this. And now I need to go deeper. You know what I mean? It gives that curiosity of like, I need to learn more.
Yeah, I hope it's not holding people accountable in a way that makes them feel like I'm judging them, but more because for me, it's like, I feel like I've been thinking a lot about mercy. And like today I made a video about Bassem Youssef and Mehdi Hassan, and just calling them in a little bit about how they're very anti-resistance.
Yeah.
And I was, before I made the video, I was questioning myself, and I was like, is this video like attacking their character and humiliating them? And it's like, is that my goal? And it's like, no, my goal is to like be like, I want them to feel like I'm coming with them with a lot of grace. But I also feel like they're lacking mercy for the resistance, you know?
But that's what community does. You're supposed to hold people accountable, and you're doing it with love. Like, I think that's why it lands.
Like, I hope that's what it lands for you, because I think, like, for me, the work began during the pandemic, and I like Jasmine. I was going through it. Your videos literally used to make me laugh so much. I was going through, like, it was such a horrible time in my life. Like, everything in my life was literally like collapsing in the pandemic, and it felt so spiritual, because prior to that, I was like working in corporate, and I was bawling out of control. Like, it was like the best time of my life. I had a really I used to work for startup companies. I used to make a lot of money. I was like, you know, I was in a relationship. I was like, I'm going to get married to my CFO boyfriend. Everything's going to be great. And then the pandemic happened, and every pillar of my life collapsed. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And I went to school for journalism. So it was always something that I cared a lot about. And so, like, in 2021, it was like me and my cousin Sadia, who's also my co-founder. We were in Gansevoort, and we were tripping on acid, and we were sitting across the street, and like they had just like redeveloped the area, and I was like, oh my God, they just opened an Hermes, and she's like, what is that? And I was like, you don't know what Hermes is? It was like, one of those bags cost like $100,000, and she couldn't believe it. And so at the time in 2021, Israel was bombing Gaza, and it was like Sheikh Jarrah stuff that was happening, and I was like really affected by it, and I was like, you know, like, this is what they're going to do in Palestine. This is what they always do. They're going to kill all these people, move them out, and then just build a mall. You know? And that's like the story of America. Like, they just, like, in New York especially, because you can go all over New York, and they named all these towns after Native Americans. Yeah. Even like the Hutchinson Parkway, right? It's like, it's not named after a Native American, but it was like, the story is like the Native Americans killed this woman who was like a colonizer. But anyways, I was thinking about that, and I was like, that was a moment I was like, well, why am I participating in all of this? Because I used to be super materialistic, and I still love fashion. I love fashion so much. I love looking good. It's like, that's part of my identity, you know? Yeah. But I remember being like, why am I spending thousands of dollars on this Chanel bag? And, you know, the stuff that's happening in Palestine, like, no one's saying anything. And it was like, before that, it was like the Ukraine stuff was happening. Right. And nobody cared to talk about Palestine. Yeah. So why am I sitting here carrying this bag from this company that does not care about me? And I'm spending thousands of dollars. It's not like, you know, $50. It's like thousands of dollars. So that was the beginning when I was like, you know what? Like, this was going to be me. I just sold all my things. I just like sold all my Chanel bags, my Louis Vuitton, Gucci. I spent so much money on it. And then I was like, I'm going to start this documentary. And I was like, at the time, people were, I don't know if you guys remember, back in like 2020, like, people would go around, do these street interviews in New York and Paris and London, asking people what they are wearing. And it was like very much about like these metropolitan cities and like very fashionable people. And I got this idea, and I was like, well, what if we did that in places no one would think to go to, like Palestine, and or in villages in India, or, you know, in Lebanon or Iran, like, you know? And instead of just asking them what they're wearing, we end up asking them questions about their communities. Yeah. So like, people who are watching it because they're like interested in fashion, but they end up learning something. You know, you got to put the medicine in the cat. Yes.
Put the medicine in the cat.
But it's like, and I thought about that, and it was like, that was the beginning for me of like radicalizing in my own way, but in my own process. You know, it was like, okay, getting rid of the designer stuff, then change. When I went to India, I was like, oh my God, the artisans here are so dope. They're getting paid so little, but they're making sustainable clothing, and they're beautiful, and they're so cheap. And I was like, why am I going to Zara and contributing to so much fast fashion? And in like, my family's from Bangladesh, and it's like, Bangladesh makes so much of the world's fast fashion, but they are also on the end of climate change, because they're on low sea level. So Bangladesh will be underwater in the next 25 years. It's something that really like hurts my soul. And I'm like, there will be mass migration of hundreds of millions of people, and no one will care, you know? And I'm like, why am I participating in this? So that was like the next level for me, to like stop buying fast fashion, right? Yeah. And I was like, I can buy sustainable clothing, really well quality, but like, I will buy a lot less, but more expensive, you know? And so it was like, this was the process I went through, and it took time. And it's like, I really feel like I had to have mercy for myself, because I was like confronting these things about myself, but then also being like, no, I still love fashion though. I still love, I love looking pretty. And it's like, I don't have to let that go to be this. And it's like, I really want people who watch my content to also know, like, you can have that mercy for yourself. And it's like, sometimes in these liberation movements, people, Joél, people have no mercy.
No.
No mercy. And I'm like, how are we all in liberation? And there's like a lack of mercy. And it's like the amount of people who would just make a video, stitch your video and be like, try to assassinate your character. And it's like, damn, you are my mutual. Why didn't you reach out to me and like have a conversation? Like your instinct was to tear me down. And it's like, why aren't we figuring out, like in the process of building a new world, it's like, are we learning how to resolve conflict? And I don't think, how can we resolve conflict and be in liberation? If you can't confront each other, you can't resolve conflict, then you're in the wrong line of work.
Because they haven't confronted themselves.
Yeah.
That's the difference. All of y'all have met yourselves and continue to meet yourselves over and over. There's a lot of people in this work that haven't met themselves and don't meet themselves often.
I think it's really being from the Bronx that it's like, if you have a problem to me, say it in my face.
Say it to my face.
Were we just having this conversation?
about
You know what I mean? I feel like in these spaces, sometimes I'm meeting people and I'm like, why are you talking shit about me? Just say it to my face. And it's like, I don't know. It's like growing up in New York City. Yeah. I'm sure you guys knew, like the popular kid in school was always the kid that could fight. Right? It was not the richest kid. It was always in the Bronx. It was like the kid that could fight.
Absolutely.
And it was like, I think that was also like, it grew up with that aggression. But I think that aggression as in adulthood is also like, no, let's get to the point.
Very
Be
direct.
direct. I'm
Very
so
direct.
direct. And then I realized we're walking around with people who are so avoidant.
Yes, especially in corporate America.
Oh
When I tell you,
my
I was so direct in corporate America. I used to send these direct 1 to 2 sentence emails. And then my associate has to be like, Jasmine, what is up with these emails? And I'm like, what's the problem with the email? Oh my, like, what's going on with my email? I thought my email was great.
I was seeing everybody.
I asked a question and I said when I need it by.
Right.
So then they had to teach me how to add some fluff. Hey, how are you?
No. I always say, listen, one thing I appreciate about TikTok, because, it is owned by, not anymore, but it was owned by a lot of Chinese leaders. And I appreciated the fact they were like, no fluff.
No
Just
fluff.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me what's good. And
What's
I'm like,
up?
Thank you.
Thank you. Get something done here.
Thank you.
I think even for people of color, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
no,
I think for people of color, it's also like in our communities, it's okay to be direct because, and then you get over it, right? Like you can like, even in my family, we'll like yell at each other and then it'll be like, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
Right. You want
Come
something
home.
to eat?
You want something to eat? Exactly. Literally. Do you want something to eat? Like, let's go get the food is ready.
Yeah.
But it's like here in America, it's like, no, you have to be like, it's so like order, and it's like for us, I think we're so abstract.
Yeah.
Like even if you go to our parts of a country in Puerto Rico or like Southeast Asia, like traffic. Think about how people drive. It's not like this, you wait for your turn. It's like you go whenever you can go, Like it's like, it's a one lane and everyone's figuring it out. And it's like, that's how people's brains are working, And it's just like, I don't know. I just think that there's sometimes this thing where people are not able to take themselves out of like what they think they know and be able to think beyond that.
Oh, I mean, that's part of the work that we were going to say something. Sorry.
No, look, social media. Like, I mean, listen, Naley and I've already had this conversation about like, I've been slowly removing myself from any of the platforms for the most part because there's no nuance and there's no really, when we talk about conflict resolution, that doesn't exist in a social media platform because you have to be able to communicate a thing in under 3 minutes. And no conflict is going to be resolved in that way. And like we're responding at each other and not with each other because we're not actually in community with each other. Like we're not in real life breaking bread. Like we think we know people and it's under the guise of a phone, and the phone becomes the container for how we communicate with each other. And it's like there's a thing that's missing, and it doesn't mean that we get off of the platforms because I think there's value in like what folks are doing on these platforms. And also too, my encouragement is just like, and also because you lose a bit of that connectivity when we're not bringing the thing into IRL in a way that allows us to actually dissect, unpack with each other what's actually happening versus what I perceive to be happening because there's distance between me and you and this screen.
Yeah. I love that, bringing that into real life because I feel like a lot of times we'll follow people like Naley and so many people follow creators that like say good things, but that doesn't often mean that they have that in their actual circles where they're talking about it and are in community with people that have those thoughts. Sometimes that's like the only place they're getting it, especially for people who may be like the oddball in their families. Maybe there's someone right now that's in a MAGA house that's loving Naley. And it's like, I wish I had a friend like this. I wish I had a community like, you know what I mean? Like there are people that don't really know people in real life. The MAGA house. Yeah. That don't know.
I want whoever that person is to reach out and be like, yes.
Reach out, be like, if you are following Naley from MAGA house and you love her secretly, reach out and be like, I wish I could, have this conversation in real life. Also, I love what you said about like, Naley, about like giving yourself mercy and how some people will like say things and like say it to my face. I feel like just the world that we're living in, I feel like all of us kind of in some way are forced to live in a contradiction.
Yeah.
Like you're forced to like have like these internal feelings of resistance and I got to break the system, but we also got to live within the system. Mm-hmm. And so there's always going to be that contradiction. So yeah, maybe you're like, damn, I don't want to be materialistic and, I'm breaking free of that mold. But I actually do like fashion. I'm actually interested in a cute silhouette. And maybe I do have a pretty dress from Zara.
I saw a woman that made a video today and she was like, don't stop. You're delusional if you think men don't care about how you look. She's like, even Ray Charles and who was the other guy? He liked how other women look. He's like, and they can't even see.
Right now. They care how you look.
Stevie Wonders, they were blind and they still have pretty wives and they can't even see.
They knew.
How did they know?
And it's like,
they feel the hand. That's what they do. Stevie would be like, oh yeah, you bad.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, my hands feel like they very like rough.
I saw your video though about, I think you were saying like how people are really hard on creatives who are like,
I got eaten up for this video. I'm gonna front. But you know what? I left it up because I was like, I think it's a conversation we still should have. Y'all can eat me up.
I understood what you were saying. And I have a lot of friends who are influencers and they're like, you work at, like people will be like, why'd you take this deal with this company? And again, mercy, right? It's like people who work at law offices, people who work at the banks, people who work at, Sephora, people who are like, even if you don't work for, I know people who work at Starbucks corporate, like people who work at Amazon. And it's like, you're telling someone that they can't, like, if this is their way of making means, like, even I boycott. But there are some things that I just can't boycott, And
that's the thing, because with Jasmine, what you were talking to in that video is like, again, this is what I'm saying though, the nuance. Because you're sharing the thing that's important and you're unpacking the thing, and then people are in comments, right? And we think about it through this lens of someone is commenting from their computer or from their phone, and they saw the content and they're responding to a thing and someone else is responding to another comment, but the time frame in which the thing is happening is also so dependent on the environment in which the people are responding from.
Yes.
And we don't, because you're on social media, there's no context.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get enough.
Lack of mercy.
Right. And there's a high horse.
Yeah.
And then
it's
high. It's high.
A moral high horse. And I kind of just want to remind everyone, like at the end of the day, guys, we're on a Meta products. We're on an Apple product. We are all living in contradiction.
The only person I've ever met in my life that I felt was like the most ethical was this guy that chose to live in a mud house.
That's it.
Like literally, he was like, I want to eject out of this matrix, and he built a eco village, and it's all sustainable.
Yeah,
that is the only person that is allowed to speak to me with moral authority. Yeah. If you're living in an apartment building, you got running water, you got a dishwasher, you're using a laundry machine, like. Take a minute before and you come at people. Like I have a friend, she is very pro-Palestine. Her one addiction is Coke. She can't let it go. It's her thing. Coca-Cola, yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like... she thought it was no. Like, that's... Man,
Palestine.
You need to fix that.
Addiction. No, her addiction is Coca-Cola. But she cares so much, and not just about Palestine, but Sudan, and she donates every month, and she's on top of what's happening. But this is the one thing that she like can't let go of.
Yeah.
Is she a bad person?
No.
And it's like, listen, you do what you can, I was like, can you try like Salam Cola? And she's like, no, it doesn't have the same, But it's like, okay, I have mercy. And it's like, I think sometimes in these spaces, it's like, no, you're wrong. And it's like, no, being able to see that like, hey, we're all trying our best. And it's like, accountability is cool and all.
Yeah.
But it's like, you allow people to go through the process, Like for me, and I know you're talking about the nuances and stepping away from social media, but sometimes I think like if people are triggered by my video, then I planted a seed, And if you think about when a seed is planted, it's triggered first before it literally roots up. And it's like, when people are triggered by my message, I'm like, okay, then I'm the most effective. And this is who I really wanted to get to, right? Because if everyone's already like, yeah, we get you, but the people who are like respond with like frustration, I'm like, oh, this got to you.
Yeah.
Because like for me, when I see Israelis or Zionists like make videos, I'm never like, it doesn't get me like going. I'm like, okay, whatever, But it's like, if my message did, then that means like you're feeling conflicted about how you're going.
Yeah,
about
I'm making
things.
you think a little bit deeper.
And I think maybe like people probably saw that when you made your video of like, why would they feel so upset by it? Are they all perfect? And it's like, no, if someone was to zoom into their lives, I'm sure we could pick it apart and find something. And it's like, this is why mercy is so important.
Yeah, I mean,
we need humanity too. Like a story that one of my friends shared with me is that someone came at her. She's very like in this liberation space in LA, and someone came at her for buying Amazon. She did an Amazon haul, and she was like, girl, I hear you. She's like, I've been in this space for a long time, but my house just burned in the LA fires. And I can't afford to go to these stores or to like thrift. And she's like, I did an Amazon haul because I need stuff for my home, And like, that was a real moment for her, like a vulnerability. But when we talk about nuance, it's about removing the individual, right? And removing that and like seeing the human in someone else. And I think that's the culture that it's funny because we're taught to like go and like into these spaces and become like them. And then I realized so much of my liberation is tied to how I grew up. It's community oriented. It's about thinking about the other person too. It's about putting them first sometimes and like removing yourself from like that place. And we were talking about this, Jazz, today. Like, people hate to be inconvenienced. People hate it. And like they get mad over the inconveniences. And it's like, okay, but think deeper. Why is that happening?
Right.
Why is that happening?
Yeah. And so we were talking and I was explaining how like it's so annoying to argue with someone about like the injustices of the world when I'm talking about human life and you're talking about convenience. Like we're not even having the same, like, of being like, maybe someone is like, these gas prices. And I'm like, people are dying. People are we're bombing children.
Okay, yes.
Yes, now you care because of the gas prices.
Yes.
But when I was out here being like, guys, Gaza's burning. Nobody gave a damn. So it's just like, it's really hard to argue with people when you're talking about convenience. When they're talking about convenience and you're talking about life. And I'm like, we're not even on the same page of like what really matters to us. Like, can we just talk on a human level and not like on a convenience level? It's okay to be a little bit of inconvenience. But I feel like that is like that's one of the impacts of capitalism, because everything is about convenience. Overnight shipping is about convenience. Getting something right away, not having to wait for anything. Instacart, all of these things are like about convenience, and convenience is violent. It's always violent
and oppressive and exploitative.
Right. Your cheap clothes. It's violent. Like there's so much violence baked into the fabric of that. And when you're talking about mercy, it popped into my head too. Of like, we live in just such a punitive society. Everyone just wants to punish everybody. We don't have any we don't have any restorative justice. We don't have any transformative justice. Like there's just punishment, and all of that is a result of this system that we are living in that is very much broken.
Absolutely.
There are some people who are like against incarceration, right? That will be the most like for punishing people online. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, you're like against the system, and you're against people being incarcerated, and then you have no mercy,
and you're trying to cancel people.
But this is what we talked about. When you don't have a healing practice, what that does is it separates you from your liberation practice.
There's a lot of unwell people in these spaces, and I got to talk about that because I think there's a lot of sensitive people, and they come into this work because they feel energized to do something. But then they don't ground themselves, and when you don't ground yourself, you literally get taken away, and it's like you can't even see the finish line. You can't even understand how to work together as a team. And it's like everything is emotional. Like there's a lot of content creators who also make videos about what's happening, but it's like, it's very much emotional. It's very much about vibes and emotion, no analysis.
Vibes and emotion.
And it's like vibes and emotions. And it's like, okay, there's a time and place for that, right? But it's like, when we're like, sometimes I'm like, you have to see something from the lens of geopolitical issues, right? Like the analysis of that. And then you're reducing geopolitical issues into humanitarian issues. And that is actually creating the humanitarian issue. You're like exploiting it, and you can't even see that, right? Because you don't have the geopolitical analysis for this. And it's like, it's so hard. And this is how I felt with the whole Iran stuff, right? A lot of people don't know enough about Iran. And it's meant to be like that, right? And I felt really, like when I went there last year, I felt really like, oh my God, I'm so propagandized, right? And it's like, you know, like I went with like a group of people who were journalists and activists. And when I went there, it's like, obviously it's a propaganda trip, right? But you are able to see like and think for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it was so crazy because it was like, oh my God, you went on a state propaganda trip with Iran. And it's like the United States, France, every other country does it. But if it's Nicaragua or Cuba or Iran, it's like, oh my God, how dare you, right? And it's like, you live under Epstein regime. Who are you to talk to me with so much moral authority, you know? And it's like, no, I am curious. I want to see for myself and I want to build a mindset for myself. And no government is perfect and everyone hates their government. But do people deserve to be nuked? Do people deserve to be killed? And it's like, people can't even begin to think like that. You know, they don't know enough about this country. They don't know enough about Cuba. They don't know enough about Nicaragua.
And it's all by design.
Not Nicaragua.
And it's all by design. It's Nicaragua, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different geopolitical thing that happened in Nicaragua. But I think that it's all by design,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Even when I was, a small example, when I went to Morocco, my family, like they're all immigrants and they're all like, oh my God, well, you have to cover yourself, like be careful. And I'm like, I think I'm going to be okay. Like, you know, I'm fine. And I went there and it's like if I landed and I was like, these are all Latinos. These are all like, we're all the same. Like, we're all the same.
They
and
be looking just like us.
They be looking just like us. And it was so like, they didn't look at me any type of way. I wasn't over here in a bikini, but like, I wasn't over here like.
You look very fly. Oh, I saw your outfits. They were very modest and very fly.
You was just in Morocco too, right?
Yes. I went to Morocco too, and my outfits were not as fly, but they were all modest. They were all modest. I didn't even show an arm, but
it was beautiful to be there. And like, this is a whole, like, I wish people could just travel or just spend time with someone who's not like them.
Yeah.
Like, spend time with somebody who's not like you.
This is the thing. It's like, I think with places like Iran, it's like they just have a different way of life.
right.
That's it.
And it's like, you can't, in your Western mind, you can't even understand that. And it's like, differences exist. Like, even when I think about, like, people are always asking me, like, my opinion on LGBTQ, right? And I'm like, I have friends who are trans and gay and queer, and I have friends that are really religious, like Muslim. And my friends who are Muslim are like, I don't really want to teach my kids about all this stuff, like LGBT right now, because they're kids. And like, when they're older, that's for us to have that conversation.
Right.
And then I have my friends that are LGBT and they're like, no, like, gender is a construct and fuck the patriarchy, and I'm going to teach my kids to be free. Both of these people do not want to harm each other. You know, they are not actively harming each other. They have different beliefs and different ways of life, and they don't want to harm each other. But if they wanted to, they can make an argument to say that this person is actually harming each other, right? But I'm like, the thing is, it's like, instead of trying to teach your kids like something that's different or trying to teach your kids opposing views, why not just teach your kids that like differences exist? People are different from us and we should respect them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, you don't have to judge them. You don't have to be disrespectful.
Yes.
Just, you know, allow them to exist and be respectful and trust that they should be treated as equally.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
to that point, and like, I mean, Jasmine, you called that out perfectly. I think, and I don't want to keep going back to social media in this conversation, but I think if we're looking at the overarching problem, it's capitalism, because capitalism is what creates that dissonance, right? It's like there's a need to have a separate being or people in order to create that hierarchy. So like that division gets sown very early, where it's you believe this thing and you believe this thing, and so there's two ends of that spectrum, and this area in the middle doesn't get covered ever, and people don't get enough time to actually be with each other in the first place. And again, capitalism has done a marvelous job of it. We were talking about the Bronx earlier, right? And so like the Bronx feels like a separate island, not just because of like the political systems at play here, but there's a physical distance from like getting to the actual borough, but then also too there's a distance in like people are not around other people from the Bronx. People stay in their silos. People stay in their silos on social media. People stay in their silos in their like friend circles in the community groups. So even to what Naley's talking to, it's the ability to be curious enough to venture outside of that circle. There's a lot of trepidation and fear in that, because we're not seeing actual examples of that in real time, right? And that is by design, right? So like when you go on the algorithm, it's giving you the opinion that is either directly in contrast to what you think or feel, or it's giving you the thing that is giving you the dopamine to encourage you to continue to believe in a system.
Yeah.
Right. And there's not enough room for you to be able to go, okay, what does it look like to sit in the middle of that, in that grayness?
Right.
And play, and not even play both sides, because I think that's what people try to point it as. Like, I can see both sides of the opinion, but I use Tupac as an example always, because the same person who wrote Dear Mama is the same person who wrote How Do You Want It? And I think that's the same person. It's I wouldn't say they're different. Like, it's the contradiction of it that we're sitting in, and we're being asked to sit in that. I mean, Jesus was a walking contradiction, right? Like, there's a thing that happens in us, and because we don't have any time, because we're not slowing down, right? So like the immediacy of everything, which again is capitalism.
Yeah.
We think speed means efficacy. Yeah. And I've been encouraging us more to like slow down, because the slowing down, the example I've been using lately is like, if we're both driving and speeding to a red light, and then you get stopped and you've been going 40 miles per hour and I've been going 15, we're both getting to the red light. Your speed was not either effective or efficient. It just got you to a place, you wasted more energy. And so part of the slowing down for me has just been, how do we sit in community more, so that if I'm having a conversation with you, I can hear your reflection, and I can also think about the geopolitical connections, because I'm giving myself time to sit with the information I'm processing, you know?
And to read. I mean, like,
My God.
read.
A little bit.
People to read.
Just a little
Because the thing is, like, listen, it is a privilege to travel. Like, I always say that. Like, I get to travel and I get to see all these different experiences, but also, if you can't, read. Like, read a book. Not an Instagram reel, like, read a book.
Yeah.
Read something that is about something that's different than you.
Yeah.
Read about Puerto Ricans and that story. Read about Palestine and Israel. Like, read about these things and continue to feed your mind. And spend time. And also, feelings are not facts. I tell people that all the time.
Feelings are not
when
facts.
When I talk about Cuba and Venezuela, because it's so close to my communities, I'm like, feelings aren't facts. I get that there's a lot of feelings here, but it's not the fact.
Tyra Brock will say, she would tell you to ask yourself, like, it's real, but is it true?
Yeah.
Right? And it's very simple reframe, because it's like, it's a thing you can feel. The feeling of the thing is real, but this is actually true.
This is why we need to meditate. And I always tell people, it's really hard for people to meditate, because they are like, oh, well, I'm thinking so much. And I'm like, that's why you need to meditate. Right?
Right.
Be grounded.
When you're meditating, you can be, it's not so much about quieting your mind. It's about being aware of all the thoughts that you're having, and realizing like there's a separation, because you, the real you is the awareness. It's not the thoughts. And when you're able to separate that and realize like the thoughts are just passing, and you're attaching yourself to the thoughts, and those thoughts are creating beliefs. So that, and then you start to see the world through that lens.
And then you start to think that that's actually you.
Yes. It's not. And this is why I always say, I'm just a soul having a human experience.
Absolutely.
And when I die, that soul will still live. You know, and this is why I was saying, like, even with ayahuasca, just realizing like you once were the trees. And maybe that could feel even just like
at this room.
A trigger is like feeling like, oh my God, the trees are moving.
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming. It's like realizing that the animals, the trees, I was everything once.
Yes, we are all one thing.
One thing.
Yeah, and I feel like even that's gonna sound like really hippy dippy for anyone.
They're gonna be like, they was on
for anyone that's never done any type of like psychedelic, like that's gonna sound crazy. But when you do it, it's like, because you disassociate from your body, you kind of realize like we are all just energy. And earlier you said something about like, you know, we're all judging people. Why can't people just teach their children or whatever to respect differences? So Eckhart Tolle, I love the book The Power of Now too. And I think there was a passage in there about judging people. Like when you're judging people, you're constantly putting things into buckets of good or bad, good or bad. Yeah. And so the more you judge, it actually is a reflector of, it's indicator of how unhappy you are, because you always feel the need to put things in
everything's a reflection of you.
Because you have internalized so much shame. And because you always putting yourself in a bucket, and what you do in a bucket, oh, I did this good, I did this bad. And just all of that creates a lot of shame internally, and therefore you then project that. And so I totally agree, like we need to stop judging and also to meditate as well, because that's how you learn to just be more in your body and less like in your mind, which is kind of always racing, especially now with social media. Everything changes in 3 seconds. There's a different image, there's a different sound, and people have no attention spans. So like meditation, you can really like, you can notice how bad it is for you in your mind. Like I remember when I first started meditating, I had told my therapist, I was like, so I tried meditating today, and I said, you know what, I'm going to put a timer. And when my mind feels too hectic to bear anymore, I'm going to stop it and see how long I was able to go. It was like 48 seconds. It was, and it felt like I was there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then after a while, like I met it. This is all 2020. 2020 was a big time. Okay, by the end of like 2020,
We all went through it.
I learned how to like really clear those thoughts. I got the Calm app. Shout out to the Calm app.
No, shout out.
You know, sponsor me. And I got up to 20 minutes. And then I started setting an alarm. I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. And then I got up to 20 and it would go off. And I'm like, that felt like 5 minutes. Because I finally like was able to clear my mind.
Stillness.
People don't even do the work for, like, I think when you were talking about like everyone wants instant gratification, it's like, people forget that there's a process.
Train something.
Yeah, but it's like the process of something, right? It's like people forget because everything is instant. They forget the process, and we don't respect the process. And like last year, I was going through it really hard, and everyone kept saying, "Naley, you just have to trust the process." And I was like, "What the fuck is the process?" Right? And I was like,
"Does the process know I'm trusting it?"
Exactly. Does the process know I'm trusting it? And then I was like, "The process is God." And I was like, I really feel like I had this like weird relationship with God at that time because I was like so upset at the genocide. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to pray. And I swear to God, once I started to pray, like things just started to like work themselves out. And it was like, I literally just gave my problems and I was like, I'm giving it to you, God. And like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just trust that you're going to figure it out. And it just made me realize like, if we can trust the process, if we realize that there is a process, that there is a whole thing that we have to go through. Like, and that process can be a violent metamorphosis.
Absolutely.
You know? And I
It's
think
not always cute.
it's not. It's very violent. And it's like, this is a necessity for your own growth. Like the top of one mountain is the bottom of another.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is just life. It's like, I used to be like, why does, you know that show Shameless?
Yeah.
And I used to be like, why are the characters in this like never-ending obstacle course, right? That's what this show felt like, a never-ending obstacle course. And I was like, you know what? But in real life, that's how my life feels. It's like never-ending, but it's also like, there's so much beauty happening at the same time. You know, even in this moment when I was thinking about the genocide, I'm like, I've also met so many beautiful people. It also opened up my heart so much. I cannot believe it's been 3 years and I'm still here doing this. Like like I can't even believe I'm still here doing this for 3 years. And it's like, this has expanded my love and my heart. And I couldn't even believe that I had so much love. Like, you know, I'm even shocked by it sometimes.
Absolutely. And someone asked me recently, like, when did you start meditating? And I'm like, well, I didn't know. I always prayed. And prayer is meditation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same
I always say prayer is when I talk to God and meditation is when God talks to me.
Oh.
You know? And it's like, we need both, right? Because like I literally am talking to God and then in meditation, it's like I'm getting all these downloads.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and I think you need both.
You do need both.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As we're wrapping, because I can talk to y'all forever, and we could talk forever. I want to ask y'all the last question. It's, how are we reimagining systems? How do you reimagine the system? If you could reimagine it, whether it's small, little, whatever that means to you, how do we reimagine systems? And what gives you hope for the future?
You know, I try not to be, I'm trying to be less fatalist in my purview of the world, because I look at where we are now as not just as a country, but as a society, and like we're failing each other so in so many different ways. But you know, I try to carry like an abolitionist mindset through all this work. And so, you know, Naley kind of called it out. And so for me, it's liberation of all peoples, right? Gendered, non-gendered, BIPOC, white, whatever the case is. Like we have this this imaginary utopia in our brains of like what it's going to look like to get free. And I think Naley was talking to this, and when you were speaking, what it made me think of is the friction, like, and like the violence of growth. And so that's nature, right? You think about caterpillars to butterflies. You think about what it takes for a rosebud or a rose garden to grow. Like the process of growing a plant, right, is a very violent process if you're looking at what's happening underneath the soil, right, to get to the thing. And so for me, abolition is the requirement, and I learned this so much from my friend Zola. The requirement is to have an unyielding amount of faith and hope. And this idea, and it's very idealistic, but it's also knowing that will come with friction. There was I don't want to live in a world where it is frictionless. That is impossible. You know, like friction allows us to learn about each other. It also allows us to grow with each other. And so for me, what's allowed me to imagine systems is abolition, you know, because what I have to remind folks is like, you know, my brother did 10 years upstate, and, you know, someone is going to come home right? Like people are going to come home eventually. And so what does home look like for them? What does community look like for them? This is why like when we think about it, and it's something I wanted to bring up because I think we were talking about it, but not naming it. I think about how do we mitigate harm, right? So it's like when you think about the Amazon haul and like this person has to do that. And so all we're trying to do is mitigate harm. It's very much a harm reduction practice, right? When you think about needle exchange programs and things of that sort, it's harm reduction because we are living in a society that is very harmful. And so we think that we're going to have revolution or liberation in like one fell swoop. And like some leftists and radicals will argue like, well, that's the problem because we're thinking about this as a slowed effort. And I'm like, our ancestors have always done this in this way. And
process.
And if I'm living in opposition to what my ancestral background has been telling me, then we're gonna keep struggling to meet the moment. And so for me, it's always about abolition. It is always about what is the most freest idea or thought I can imagine and see for ourselves. And that to me is a society where we can have conflict, we can resolve that with each other, where we have space to process and to think. I mean, what I've been doing really quickly is I've been leaning a lot more into like analog. And so for me, analog is also tactile, and it's also being in real life with actual people, and having conversations with people. There's a writing workshop that I've been leading called The Writer's Way that is very much, I think, seated in that, where I'm having folks, veteran writers, novice writers come in, you write, you pay a fee. That fee, it proceeds from that go to an organization that we're supporting each month, right? Like, how do we activate, right, in community, but also make it joyful and also make it productive for people in community, but then also how are we supporting the community outside of the work? And so for me, leaning into community is also a part of that, but a big part of that is slowing down. It's playing records, it's using the French press, and the hope for me is my babies. I think my two daughters, when I watch them, it is opportunity for me to see what my legacy will be, outside of just like the things that I'm creating, but then also where the future and hope exists. It is absolutely in them because they're living in a freedom that I didn't have when I was growing up, you know, and I'm grateful for that. But then also too, to me, I think they're the keys for what I'm imagining this world to be.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I know. Snaps, all the snaps.
That deserves all the snaps.
Yeah, thank you.
How am I reimagining systems? So I'm a dreamer. I'm a Pisces.
Hey.
And I feel like I live in a very dreamy, imaginative world. And for like on a very personal level, I think I feel very, very free. And when I think about like reimagining the system, I think about like how everyone defines freedom differently. And we were kind of talking about this earlier. And so for some people, freedom is like financial freedom. For some people, it's like spiritual freedom. They want the freedom to, break out of whatever they were born into, and they want a freedom to think differently and to believe something else. For some people, freedom is, their gender identity and their expression, or who they're allowed to love. For some people, freedom is being able to go back to the motherland and actually live off the land and not have to be in this capitalistic society. Or freedom is, for me right now, freedom is not having a 9-to-5. Not having to clock in, not having to, be part of a workplace where I know I'm not being fairly compensated no matter what. And freedom feels like being able to create things that bring joy and spread info and knowledge and laughs. And everyone defines freedom differently. So I feel like I kind of would love to reimagine a system where there's just a lot less harm in whatever oppression people are feeling at that moment. Because
I love that.
Everyone feels oppression in their own way.
Absolutely.
And some of that oppression is like very systemic and affects large groups of people. But we also have like smaller groups. We have households. There's people that experience oppression within their very households, and then you can go a little bit bigger than that. We have educational systems, and then we have, our larger work system, then we have the government system. So there's many different layers. And so I would like to reimagine a world where there's just a lot less harm and oppression, and people can be more free in whichever way they choose to be free, as long as it's not harming other people. And I think that brings a lot more acceptance, just more acceptance and more freedom.
And we need more imagination.
More imagination. People are like,
We need the dreamy Pisces.
Yeah.
Right. I love love.
More whimsy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories about people who move to different countries and realize how like insane it is to live in the US. Like this woman was like, I heard the story about this woman that moved to Italy, and she thought she was gonna get evicted because her payment went late, and she had a meeting with like her landlord, and then she was like, I don't understand why, like what's gonna happen? Like what I shouldn't be charged the fee for this late payment because the system was down. He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, he's like, there's no fee. I'm not gonna kick you out on the street. You thought I would kick you out on the street? We're gonna figure this out. You're not gonna be homeless. But like that's how it is here in the US. Like, oh, you can't pay, get the fuck out.
Right.
Or even like I saw a video about I believe it was someone in Iran that was talking about how like over there, family is like woven into their society. So I think it was like during lunchtime, everyone goes home.
Yeah.
Everyone leaves school. The kids leave school and they go home. People leave work and then they go home, and they actually have lunch as a family. So like being a family is woven into society. And in the US, you just don't have that.
No.
You have your work and you have school, and then your family is kind of like just these people you see before you go to bed.
They want you to leave the family.
Right? Like,
or only focus on the nuclear family.
Yeah.
right. And like exactly. And I'm like, the nuclear family is 100% propaganda. Don't even get me started on that. But like literally, like I just let's reimagine a society where like we're not focused on just the dollar.
Yeah. Okay, this might be a little controversial, but I've been thinking a lot about like what that world would actually look like in practice. And I actually had to root myself in the reality of what exists right now. And it's like, we are not, where things are going, it's not looking better. It's looking like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I was like, if it's going to look worse than before it gets better, what would that look like? And it's like, honestly, I start to think about like the future really isn't capitalism or communism or socialism. The future is, to me, AI. And it's like, I think about how all of these governments have collected so much information on their populations. And I think about how right now, like, it looks like we're going into World War III. And it's like when the system, when humanity finally like kills humanity and nature, it's like there will be nothing to do besides to like outsource, resolve. And it's like giving that to AI to basically give all of our information and be like, you decide what's the best society we should live in. You take in all of our information and decide for us, right? And I was thinking about this and I was like, we have only known technology to be evil because it's only been in the hands of bad people. But it's like technology can actually be used to make this world a better place, right? Like technology, like we don't actually need to use data centers for AI. We actually don't need to waste water. We actually don't need to use like Nikola Tesla's entire body of work was free energy.
We don't need AI.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't need AI.
We don't. But it's like the way that the way the world is going, it's like human are always going to advance, right? It's not like it's not like people want to be like, we're going to go back. But it's like, no, I think like the future would actually look like technology, but also in harmony with nature. You know, we don't actually have to harm nature to have.
That made me think about like, so many indigenous tribes have been living in harmony with nature forever. And when you think about humanity evolving in that way of advancement, and if that's the case, we kind of went backwards. In the sense of like becoming completely at odds with nature, at war with nature.
Exactly.
So it almost sounds like you're saying like advancement would be to, be in harmony with nature, which is actually going way back because humanity was at one point in harmony with nature.
Yeah. But it's like, we're not going to get rid of planes. Right. We're not like, if you think about like just how we travel, like that in itself is so unethical, right? It takes all this like gas to just go from one place to another, right? Even like how we're getting shipment and exports, these things that's the whole point of this war is gas, right? It's like this resource that we are exploiting nature from. But can technology show us other opportunities? Like if I think about aliens, these aliens that exist, it's like they're moving at the speed of light. How? They've been able to reach a level of consciousness, which we are not at, to be able to access technology that like makes their world a better place. And I think like my hope is that after the worst is over, like we get to that place of like using, like being able to be in a higher level of consciousness and actually use technology to solve our problems so that we can spend time in nature. I want AI to do shit like do my laundry or you know what I mean? Like I not create art. I want to be able to create art. You do my laundry, you know? And can that exist, you know? But it's like we haven't even began to see that world, and we can't even imagine that world because technology has only been used for the worst. But it's like right now AI is helping people walk. You know, right now AI is actually there are other parts of it that is doing really good in society, but we've only seen it do the worst because the people behind it are really bad. But it's like, can we imagine a world where technology can exist without harming nature, without harming us? And it's like, if we can't even, like, I don't see humanity ever not advancing. I will always see humanity finding a way. And I think that's why God built us, is like a test to see how far can we go.
Yeah.
You know, even when every time I get on a plane, I'm like, human beings built this.
Wow.
Every time.
I'm creative built it.
Yeah.
We're
like
all
someone
creatives.
imagined a plane and then built it, you know? And it's like, we forgot that we could do that.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, that's why they keep making reruns of movies, because I'm like,
Yeah.
making a different Moana.
Exactly.
Because people don't have imagination, and they don't want to invest in those who have imagination because they can be a little bit more controversial or more, here's the things that are happening in the world, and people don't want to invest in that because they want to keep the propaganda.
Also, everyone just wants the money. It's like you invest in something, it's a risk. Oh, what if we lose the money? What if we lose the money?
That's
Like, you know, I don't need another reboot or like another spinoff. I love Star Wars. We don't need another spinoff.
Son of a yes.
But Moana just came out, how they doing a live action already.
I know.
Like, that's what I'm confused by.
And it looks corny. It looks corny.
So corny. But thank y'all all so much. Again, we can talk forever, but thank y'all so much for this space and for being here. And I hope that this inspires anyone who's watching to have more conversation with people that, again, are not from the same, well, y'all are all from the Bronx, but like people who are not from the same community, and like have empathy and mercy for experiences that don't mirror your own. And read a book.
Amen.
Please.
Read a book.
Please.
Read mad books.
Yes.
And
Many
art.
books. Start with some Octavia Butler.
Yes. Octavia Butler. We love her.
Talent and sewers. You need
Yes.
the one and the two.
Yes.
And the three.
Everyone read that at the same time, I felt.
There's a
Everyone was reading at
collective
the
like
same time.
sigh of like, we need to get this.
Yeah.
For real. Thank y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Remy. Thank
Your
you.
word. Thank you, Remy.
I saw him go like, I'm sorry. The conversation's so good.
Time.
No, thank y'all for real. This
No,
is so
for real.
beautiful.
This is great.
Word.
We could have been here 3 hours.
Yep,
I could have kept
We could have
talking.
got
y'all.
like the charcuterie and the wine, and we could have just been like,
Thank y'all so much for listening to this podcast, for loving on this podcast. If you vibing with it, share it with a friend, comment below, or DM me. Let me know how you're feeling, and listen to previous episodes. And if you want to stay tuned on all things Hella Latina, follow us, subscribe, all the things. The links are in the show notes.